Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big fat Q&A. I don't even know what to call it. It's a lot of talking, That's how we're gonna do it. And webcam, because apparently that's how people do Q&A, and I really should have ironed this shirt. This is the only thing by Calvin Klein that I own. The only thing. It's just a shirt, but I like to say I own something by Calvin Klein. It makes me feel fancy. I never really owned brand names when I was a kid, and I think rightfully so. Frankly, I don't think it was necessary to have such things. It's all about money as well. It's like, you know, why would you even pay for stuff like that? Seems kind of absurd. Parents had a really good attitude to that. It's like, what, you know, why would we waste money on brand names? Like, yeah, you're right. That's actually pointless. It's a nice shirt, though. I was actually quite surprised to find a Calvin Klein shirt that fit me. That was the shock to me. It's like, what? How did... That's even possible? Apparently so. All right. Well, Q&A. So we do this every few months, whenever we can. It really comes down to when I've got the time and when we've got enough questions for it. The subscribers are the folks who are welcome to submit questions, and they've done that already. Those who couldn't be here have sent me a bunch of questions. So I have a list of those. Once I'm through those, I'll use questions from the chat. You can leave your questions in the chat right now, and that's being collected by the moderators, and they're going to post them to me as we go along. So if you post now, don't worry, your stuff won't get missed. It should all get picked up. And if I don't answer your question for some reason, and I don't tell you why, then feel free to ask it again towards the end of the session, because we may have perhaps missed it. Levels should be fine, I think. Just let me know if they're not. They're looking okay. Now, I think I'll probably just stay on cam for the whole duration. I do have Path of Exile kind of set up that I played like 7 hours of yesterday, which was a little ridiculous, but I do have that just in case. It really comes down to whether Twitch complains about me just being on camera all the time, but I think things should be absolutely fine. And I should also point out that I am watching the Acer Team Story Cup in the background as well, because my guys are playing, and we're currently up one game against Team Liquid. Hopefully we can make that a second one. We'll see. Alright, so I'm going to begin with the questions that came in from the subscribers over the past week or so, and then I will get on to the questions from the chat. I will try to answer every single question today, and I will not leave until that is done. Simple as that. Alright. Man, that's a grim one. What was the darkest period of your life, and how does it feel to be where you are now? Jesus, God, that's a great start, isn't it? When were you the most miserable? I think I've talked about it quite a lot. And I think it really came down to the separation. For those who don't know, I lived in the US for a little while, about a year. I would say lived, but I went kind of in and out of the country. I was using the visa waiver program, and I'd asked a few people, including the USCIS, which is the, you know, the agency you'd think would know about this kind of thing, is what I'm doing okay? And I was like, yeah, as long as you're not working, which I wasn't, everything's fine. So I did that. I kind of had to, because at that point, Orion was actually so young he wasn't in school yet. He was in daycare. The daycare shut down. It was actually a daycare that my mother-in-law was working at, so we were able to kind of get a discounted rate. At that point, we had, like, no money. We couldn't possibly afford a daycare. So I had to stay in the country, basically look after him while Jen went out to work. And I did the WoW radio stuff as a hobby on the side. So such is the way of things. And I had to keep coming back pretty quickly. I couldn't stay out of the country for that long, because who the hell was going to look after him, you know? That's just the reality of it. She was working all the time. So never mind. Now, after that, I got kicked out of the country, basically. And it was more of a case of I flew in. It was a really bad flight as well. It's actually what I think developed my fear of flying. It was a really, really horrible flight. Everyone was just, like, at wit's end by the end of it, because the turbulence over the Atlantic was so bad. Negative pressure areas. If you've never been in one of those, it's like you're flying along, just drop straight away. It was horrible. And then I went to the Homeland Security border, pulled me aside for secondary check, pulled me aside for interrogation, and then basically said after like 2 hours of interrogation of bullshit questioning, well, most of which was like completely false, such as stuff like, why did you enter the country through Mexico on this date? And I'm showing them my passport. It's like, I didn't. Look. Like, you can see on my passport that's not true. But they keep asking questions like that anyway. I assume it's like to try and catch you out or whatever. Incredibly frustrating. Is there any weird distortion on the music for anyone else, by the way? Sounds a little bit off to me. Like little clicks in the sounds. Right, there's clicks in the voices? Is that true? Can any of the subs let me know? Because I rebooted my computer just before this. That shouldn't actually be happening. I've been getting this recently. I'm not really sure what's been causing it. Yeah, let me know. Let me know in the chat if that's the case. And I'll try and get it sorted. I'm not really sure how to. I'd probably just have to restart the stream and disable my interface. Sounds fine. Okay, there's no clicking in that. Music's fine. Music's apparently a bit loud. I'm getting clicking from the mic. Some people... intermittent? Okay. It's kind of infuriating. Okay, I'll reduce music a little bit, but apparently for almost everybody it's fine, so... this shouldn't actually be a factor. Yeah, no one else really seems to be having that problem, so... whatever. I'll just keep going. Anyway, yeah. A couple of days in their sort of detention center for immigrants, and then straight back on a plane back to the UK. And the real problem at that point was... well, it kind of became a twofold problem for a while. Firstly, it was a case of, well, what am I gonna do to make sure the family can survive and actually pay the rent? So I get myself jobs as quickly as I can. The first job I got... what was it? I can't remember when I actually flew back. Yeah, the first job I got, I believe, was a temp data entry job. And then I got a Christmas job working at the Royal Mail on the night shift, which paid pretty well, but it was data entry. What you basically did was you sat there and you read the addresses that their automated machine couldn't read. That was how it worked. And that was a soul-crushing job. It was especially bad because you ended at about 6 a.m. You started at 10 p.m., you ended at 6 a.m., so you're a complete night shift. And then you went outside and it was freezing cold, and you had to wait for the bus for about an hour in the snow, basically. So that wasn't too pleasant, freezing my toes off all the time. It took me about an hour to get home because I had to take like 2 buses and then the metro, and it was a bit of a pain in the ass to get where I needed to go. That wasn't fun, but I had to do that because, hey, you know, you gotta make money, you gotta pay for the rent. So I was making sure that Jen and Ryan were okay over there. I had a little bit of money to my name. I had to move back in with my parents because obviously I couldn't afford 2 places at that point. So that wasn't great. And I did that, and then I worked for a financial advisory. I got a job there, and that was, like, before this, that was my best job because I was getting paid pretty well. Like, I had good skills for the job. I wasn't doing any financial advising, as it were, but I was like, doing part-time marketing assistant with them, and I had experience there, which was pretty good. I was able to, obviously, use my typing skills, and I had good communication skills. So, I was really, really good at that kind of stuff, and, oh, Snoot's getting smacked! Yes, get him! Impact, go stab him! Stab the guy, just hit him! Hit him in the face! Best roach concave NA. Well, Korea. Go on, get him! Get him! Oh, you are so dead. You are so dead. Excellent. That's what I'm talking about. Cool. We can keep paying him. Anyway, sorry. Back to the point. That job was... I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad job, but it took quite a long time to travel into that because I lived sort of outside of Newcastle, so I had to walk to the metro station that was pretty far away, and then I had to get the metro in, and it was always at peak time, so it was really, really crowded. You could never get a seat or anything like that. And then I had to walk from Newcastle train station all the way up to where I worked. So that took a bit of time. You know, it's the kind of thing that everyone has to do. But it just became kind of soul-crushing after a while because it was clearly not the thing I wanted to do, and I was barely making enough to keep us alive, you know? I was above minimum wage at that point, but we had a lot. And, like, I'd accrued a lot of debt throughout this period because I was trying to keep things going. So I'd, like, refinanced a loan and, like, used credit cards and things like that. So... it was a real struggle. And then when all of this stuff happened with YouTube, you'd think, you know, that would be, like, the best time of my life. And, like, for a short time it was. But it's at that point you kind of realize, I've got all of this money, and yet I'm still kind of not doing what I want to do. I'm not back with my family. And really no amount of money is going to help that too much. And eventually I was able to get in touch with a really good lawyer, and things kind of got sorted out. But that was a real feeling of helplessness. Like, you're making more money than you've ever seen in your life, you know? Like, during the big World of Warcraft spurt where I first got my partnership, I made more in 1 month at that point than I'd made in an entire year working at the financial advisory. It was insane. It was ridiculous. I'd never seen that much money before. And I was like, but I'm still at home, you know? I still, you know, I'm with my parents. I don't want to be living with my parents. I moved out when I was 18, you know? I wanted to be independent, and that's exactly what happened. And I stayed away for years. I completed university. I went and moved in with some friends in Leicester, and then down in Sheffield with Kiki Jiki, and did some work with them, and, you know, just worked regular jobs. And I felt like financially stable, at least, you know, I was scraping by, but it was at least independence, and it was just so, it was a feeling of really nasty helplessness. I hated it. Absolutely. I could not stand it. It was infuriating. So there's that. Yeah, that was probably the worst. Eventually, of course, it got all sorted out, but that was definitely the worst. Alright. Next question. Alright, here's one. As someone who's been playing video games for quite a while, AAA titles no longer hold my interest well enough or long enough to justify paying full price for them. With the mid to low budget gaming market coming back slowly thanks to Kickstarter projects and digital downloads, I feel that my need for amazing AAA games dissipates. Do you feel the same way? If so, what do you feel that AAA titles should do to gain your interest again? Well, it depends on the AAA title. There's some AAAs that I still like playing a lot. Like open world games, I think are pretty cool. I think the mic is still clicking, but from where? I don't know if there's really anything I can do about that. Let me see if I can fix that. Like, that shouldn't be happening. I'm not sure why it is. Let me just reset the sound card. I'm hoping this won't break everything, so just give me a moment. I'm just gonna mute everything while I do this. Check, check, check. Alright. I don't know if that will actually help, but I did the switch over there. It's like I kind of hear a bit of clicking on the music end, on my end, and it's really infuriating because I have no idea what's causing it. It could be my USB hub and the amount of devices I've got plugged into that right now, but yeah, that may have something to do with it. Hard to say though. Just gonna unplug a few. Can't plug too many because there's important stuff in there. Alright. Never mind, we're back on. Okay, so as I was saying... there's a few AAAs that I do like. I still like a lot. I look forward to any big open world game because I think AAA does that better than indie ever could, right? Because you need a big budget for that kind of stuff because you need an interesting world, and you can't do that unless you have a really big development team with a lot of level designers, a lot of art assets, big budget. So things like Far Cry 3 come along, and I say, yeah, that's great. And also fighting games, you know, AAA fighting games. They are always really, really good too. So I look forward to those kind of releases. Then I look at stuff like FPS, and it really comes down to whether or not it has a good multiplayer. Because if it doesn't, then I'm probably not going to be interested. There's pretty much no AAA shooters at the moment that actually let you have any degree of freedom whatsoever in the single-player campaign, or that even have a lengthy single-player campaign. So there's no point in playing those for me. So unless the multiplayer is really, really good, I don't care. And I'm okay with that, because I like multiplayer FPS. I like it a lot. I like competitive games. But more often than not, it's disappointing. We don't see that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Other stuff, like third-person shooters are almost always bad when it comes to AAA. I don't know what it is. I think it's just lately the craze of trying to copy Uncharted in this cinematic third-person action kind of game. Generally really, really terrible. Mostly because it's massive amounts of hand-holding, huge amounts of cutscenes, bare minimum interactivity. And I really can't stand any of those things. So that's not too good either. I think that it really comes down to what kind of game you're looking for. Because there's some titles that I feel can be done very well on a low budget. Really well. You know, the recent spurt of roguelite games is good. Because you can make a game that's fairly basic in graphics, but it's challenging and actually has some depth, right? So that's why I play games like that. You can make a good Diablo clone. You know, action RPGs work really, really well on a lower budget. But I just want something that can kind of hook me in and keep me going for a while. And lately, AAAs have not really done too well there. If I were to go through I've been writing up my list of top 10 games for 2013 for my videos. Since I'll obviously be doing one at the end of the year, as I always do. And right now I'm looking at it, and I've got maybe like 12 or 13 candidates. And there is 2 AAAs. Yeah, there's 2 AAAs in there. Unless you count Dota 2. Spoiler. Which I don't necessarily think that I do. Only 2 AAAs. That's kind of ridiculous. It should be way more than that. But honestly, this year for AAA, unless, you know, there's been 2 really big AAA games that everyone's been raving about. Obviously, Last of Us and GTA 5. I don't want to play GTA 5 because I don't want to play some guy's magnum opus, because, I mean, it really is. It's Rockstar's magnum opus. I don't actually want to play that in 720p, 30 FPS. Screw that. You know, wait for it to come out on PC and play it the way it was supposed to be played. So, that's my argument on that one. And Last of Us, god damn the controls on that game. Like, I wanted to like it, I really do. I like some of the systems in that game, I really do. They're a bit excessive on the cutscenes, but I, for the most part, like the way stealth works, but the controls are fucking horrible. I cannot deal with it. So, you know, and then people rave on about Bioshock Infinite, and I think Bioshock Infinite's actually just a really big example of the problem that FPS currently has. It's dull. And they try and hide that under layer upon layer of storyline and world building. You know what I don't really care about in FPS? Storyline. I care about shooting people because it's a first-person shooter. So if your shooting's not very good, then I'm not going to be all that interested in it. Yeah, you see the problem here? And that's Bioshock Infinite in a nutshell. And some people are like, oh, it's the best game ever. No, it's not. Not even close. Don't even. So, yeah, what should they do to get my interest again? I think the adoption of crafting mechanics and the adoption of roguelike mechanics help a lot. Yeah, they make the game more interesting, and the hope anyway is just to make it a little bit less stale. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think that you need to start borrowing ideas from the indies and things like that, and a bit more sandbox, maybe. AAAs have always done sandbox well. Take some sandbox ideas from some indie titles. A lot of games taking ideas from Minecraft right now. That's not bad. Get away from the goddamn zombies. We're done with zombies. Come on. We've been doing zombies for like 3 years now. That's enough. Enough zombies, please. Survival aspects are definitely helping, but only when they're really done well. The survival aspects in something like Tomb Raider are just weak. It's just like, hey, we've got survival aspects. Like, you barely do. Those are barely even there. So you need a little bit more than that. Just generally adding depth and not holding your hand. You know, if I were going to break that down to the absolute bare essentials, stop holding my hand and stop dragging me through some stupid linear nonsense. That's what I want. I want more freedom, more depth. More trust from the game. If your tutorial's 4 hours long, then either you're a grand strategy or you've done something horribly wrong. So. Okay. Hey TB, I recognize that you're not a big League of Legends player, but I'm sure you're aware of the current issues plaguing players on the EU servers, while NA have very little problems in comparison. Do you think it's acceptable for Riot to neglect certain servers in a free game? No, it's not acceptable for any company to neglect servers in any game. It's really the only way these guys can play properly. And it's especially true when you've actually invested money into your character and into your account. It should be sorted out. I've criticized, Dota as well, just to try and be fair on this, for not enforcing language rules on the NA server, for instance, for Dota 2. Awful lot of Spanish speakers, even Ruskies actually finding their way on there. Which is just silly, and I'm really not sure why. It's like, why are you doing that? There needs to be some enforcement there, because it's a team-based game. And it's a similar kind of problem, but not having your servers working properly is just hilarious. I mean, Riot has so much money. There is no excuse. If people can't play your game properly, and they've already invested money in it, then it's not like they're going to go to a different game. They're going to try and play the game that they enjoy. Yeah, so I kind of feel sorry for the consumers there. And it's the same way I feel sorry for the guys at Dota when they have problems too. So no, it's definitely not acceptable. It's a massive service problem. I realize it's pretty much the biggest game in the world right now, but they also have the most money in the world right now. So they need to be looking into this. And this has been going on for months. I mean, I see stuff even on the front page of Reddit come up about EU West. And that would have been the server I was playing on if I still played and I was still in the UK. So I definitely would have been very pissed off about that. If stuff is getting to the front page of Reddit on a fairly consistent basis, especially on a subreddit that's actually very Riot-friendly most of the time, then as far as I can see, you should be doing a little bit more about that. I don't know what it is that's causing these problems, and I know maybe money just doesn't solve all issues, but it's not acceptable that your game's not playable. It's just not acceptable. Come on. Okay, let's sort it out. Alright. Next question. My question is, would it be possible for you to do more stuff on Twitch? Yeah, that's a nice and simple one, isn't it?